The train clanked and rattled through the suburbs of Tokyo on a drowsy spring afternoon. Our car was comparatively empty, a few housewives with their kids in tow, and some old folks going shopping. I gazed absently at the drab houses and dusty hedgerows. Then at one station, the doors opened, and suddenly the afternoon quiet was shattered by a man bellowing violent, incomprehensible curses. The man staggered into our car. He wore laborer's clothing, and he was big, drunk, and dirty. Screaming, he swung at a woman holding a baby. The blow sent her spinning into the laps of an elderly couple. It was a miracle that she was unharmed. Terrified, the couple jumped up and scrambled toward the other end of the car. The laborer aimed a kick at the retreating back of the old woman, but missed as she scuttled to safety. This so enraged the drunk that he grabbed a metal pole in the center of the car and tried to wrench it out of his stanchion. I could see that one of his hands was cut and bleeding. The train lurched ahead, the passengers frozen with fear, and I stood up. I was young then, some 20 years ago, and in pretty good shape. I've been putting in a solid 8 hours of Aikido training nearly every day for the past 3 years. I like to throw and grapple. I thought I was tough. Trouble was, my martial skill was untested in actual combat. As students of Aikido, we were not allowed to fight. Aikido, my teacher has said again and again, is the art of reconciliation. Whoever has the mind to fight has broken his connection with the universe. If you try to dominate people, you are already defeated. We study how to resolve conflict, not how to start it. I listened to his words. I tried hard. I even went so far as to cross the street to avoid the chimpira, the pinball punks who lounged around the train stations. My forbearance exalted me. I felt both tough and holy. In my heart, though, I wanted an absolutely legitimate opportunity whereby I might save the innocent by destroying the guilty. This is it, I said to myself, getting to my feet. People are in danger, and if I don't do something fast, they will probably get hurt. Seeing me get up, the drunk recognized the chance to focus his rage. Aha! He roared. A foreigner! You need a lesson in Japanese manners! I held on lightly to the commuter strap overhead and gave him a slow look of disgust and dismissal. I planned to take this turkey apart, but he had to make the first move. I wanted him mad, so I pursed my lips and blew him an insolent kiss. All right, he hollered. You're gonna get a lesson. He gathered himself for a rush at me. A split second before he could move, someone shouted, Hey! It was ear-splitting. I remember the strangely joyous, lilting quality of it, as though you and a friend had been searching diligently for something, and he suddenly stumbled upon it. Hey! I wheeled to my left. The drunk spun to his right. We both stared down at a little old Japanese man. He must have been well into his 70s. This tiny gentleman sitting there immaculate in his kimono. He took no notice of me, but beamed delightedly at the laborer, as though he had a most important, most welcome secret to share. Come here, the old man said in an easy vernacular, beckoning to the drunk. Come here and talk with me. He waved his hand lightly. The big man followed, as if on a string. He planted his feet belligerently in front of the old gentleman and roared above the clacking wheels. Why the hell should I talk to you? The drunk now had his back to me. If his elbow moved so much as a millimeter, I'd drop him in his socks. The old man continued to beam at the laborer. What you been drinking? He asked, his eyes sparkling with interest. I've been drinking sake, the laborer bellowed back. And it's none of your business. Flecks of spittle spattered the old man. Okay, that's wonderful, the old man said. Absolutely wonderful. You see, I love sake too. Every night, me and my wife, she's 76 by the way, we warm up a little bottle of sake and take it out into the garden, and we sit down on this old wooden bench. We watch the sun go down, and we look to see how our persimmon tree is doing. My great-grandfather planted that tree, and we worry about whether it would recover from those ice storms we had last winter. Our tree had done better than I expected, though, especially when you consider the poor quality of the soil. It is gratifying to watch when we take our sake and go out to enjoy the evening, even when it rains." He looked up at the laborer, eyes twinkling. As he struggled to follow the old man's conversation, the drunk's face began to soften. His fists slowly unclenched. "Yeah," he said. "I love persimmons too." His voice trailed off. "Yes," said the old man, smiling, "and I'm sure you have a wonderful wife." "No," replied the laborer. "My wife died." Very gently, swaying with the motion of the train, the big man began to sob. "I don't got no wife. I don't got no home. I don't got no job. I am so ashamed of myself." Tears rolled down his cheeks. A spasm of despair rippled through his body. Now it was my turn, standing there in well-scrubbed youthful innocence, in my make-this-world-safe for democracy righteousness. I suddenly felt dirtier than he was. Then the train arrived at my stop. As the doors opened, I heard the old man cluck sympathetically. My, he said. "That is a difficult predicament indeed. Sit down here and tell me about it." I turned my head for one last look. The laborer was sprawled on the seat, his head in the old man's lap. The old man was softly stroking the filthy, matted hair. As the train pulled away, I sat down on a bench. What I had wanted to do with muscle had been accomplished with kind words. I had just seen Aikido tried in combat, and the essence of it was love. That's one of the most beautiful and powerful stories I've heard. It helped me remember that hurt people hurt people. Have you ever experienced this? Where you're walking down the street, you're just having a normal day, maybe even a shitty day, and then someone walks up past you and looks you in the eyes and gives you this really warm, disarming smile. Like a smile from the heart. Have you ever experienced that? Every time that happens to me, it's as if all of a sudden my day gets lit up and I walk around with that joy that I received from that person, and I want to give it to everyone that I meet. And on the contrary, you might have also had this experience where you're just going about your day and you're, having a decent day. Maybe you could be in a good mood, and then something happens. Maybe, say you're crossing the street and you were a little bit too slow because, you weren't paying attention, or you were deep in thoughts, or whatever. It could be anything. And then someone yells at you with anger. And then that really feels like someone just really plunged you into a cold pool of water. And then you're going about the rest of your day in a bad mood, and then you're spreading that bad mood to everyone that you're crossing paths with. The stranger that gave you that beautiful smile doesn't know anything about you. He or she didn't choose to give you the smile because of who you are, but because of who he or she is. That person has decided at that moment to be a channel for love and compassion. And we could choose to be the same. And you never know. Your smile or your compassion could stop someone from hurting themselves or hurting another person in the next minute. Because you don't know what they're going through. They could be going through the shittiest times. They could even have thoughts to end their own lives or the lives of another person. But because of your act of kindness, because of something you said or did, gave them a sliver of hope, it might change the outcome of their life or the life of another person or the life of many, many other people. And vice versa, when we choose to accuse people of things, when we choose to judge, that person might be just teeter-tottering on the edge of a cliff, and maybe that one act of judgment would just push them to hurt themselves or hurt other people. We now live in one of the most challenging times. There are so many of us on this planet. A lot of the times there are narratives being fed to us trying to make us believe that there is not enough for everyone, that fighting each other is the only way to survive. But I don't believe that, not one bit. I believe we can all coexist in peace and harmony, but we first need to, each one of us, take responsibility for our own happiness and for the energy that we put out into the world. And before we can go out there and change the world, we have to take the time to work on ourselves first, because the world is made up of each one of us. If each individual returns to a state of health, physically, mentally, and spiritually, then the world as a whole will become that as well. We don't even need to strive for that. That would just be the byproduct of each one of us taking the time to do the hard work. It's always harder, because it's always harder to work on ourselves than work on things outside of us, because we have to face so many shadows and so many darkness within ourselves and wounds. Before we need to heal them, we need to first be aware of them and acknowledge them. And that's hard work, and it takes time. But in this day and age, this is the most important work we can do. If you say you care about humanity, then this is what you have to do first. Each one of us. I hope this story brought you some hope, and I hope this story touched something within you as well as it did for me. And I wish you a good day.